Good afternoon, everybody. If you haven't been on one of these with me before, my name's Caleb Funk. I've been with IMAGINiT for coming up on 22 years now. Been in a whole bunch of different roles. I did training and implementations and people management and project management. And now I do a lot of this type of thing where I work with clients and see what makes sense in terms of software services for where they're at and what they're working with. And I'm enjoying today. Usually I do these by myself, but today I'm joined by Pete Markovic. Pete, I'd have you do a little intro for yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Caleb. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pete Markovic with IMAGINiT Technologies. I'm a senior solutions consultant / project manager. Been with IMAGINiT about 12 years now, primarily focused on the data management products for Autodesk, whether it's Vault, PLM, some construction cloud, and so forth. So Vault is one of my specialties as well as the utilities. So I'm here to help out Caleb today. And I'll kind of sit on the sidelines and answer any questions you guys might have. Thanks.
Awesome. So what we want to look at is, this is really the idea of what's new within the client utilities is part of where we kind of came into this and wanted to start looking at this. But as we were talking and getting around and preparing for this, we realized, you know, there's a lot to these when we take a look at these utilities. So we thought, you know what, let's do a bit of a recap, talk through some of the different things that are there just built into the tools so that, you know, if you're not aware of them, now you are a little bit more. And then we'll definitely take a look at some of the new pieces that get added in. So these are, you know, 14, I guess if we think about it now, it's probably closer to 17 utilities that we have inside of, that we've created that work inside the Vault client. So we're really talking about Vault Professional when we're looking at this. These, theoretically, I think I once installed them for Vault Basic, but all the stuff they do really is geared toward Vault Professional. These tools, if you are one of our subscribers for IMAGINiT, then they're yours. They're free to you to use, and it's one of the benefits of being with us. All of these things extend what Vault does. So there's nothing, you know, I would say there's nothing new here. We don't create a brand new idea within Vault. We take things that you might be doing in Vault all the time and enhancing it somehow, making it easier. In one instance, it's really simple. We're able to select more than one than Vault allows us to do. Being able to create folders easily, being able to clean up your local drive easily, just enhancing what's already there, taking what might be multiple steps and condensing it down. Really, it comes into some main areas, and it's about that folder structure and libraries, being able to work with that, being able to extract information out, and then creating what we call synchronized consumables. So it could be a PDF, DWG, step file, different things like that. Where this comes in, as we take a look at this, we'll kind of go through a little bit of these. There's this idea of taming your folder structure. So creating local folders. That's just as simple as, you know, we can always do the right click and go to folder one at a time. We can actually create a set of folders on our local workspace. So we can take what's in the Vault and match it to our workspace. Setting templates for folders. Now I'm going to walk through this in a minute because I want to point this out. That's a really great tool. I absolutely love the templates tool within here. It's one that I get before we have these utilities. I would hear requests from clients on. I've got to do the same thing all the time. Is there a way to save a set of folders? And up till now, there wasn't. You can, once you have that folder template created, you can apply it to create new folders or update an existing set of folders. There's also a tool called standards folders within here. Standards folders would be the idea, and this is one reason a lot of people look at this, it would be the idea, I want to put all my templates, I want to put my design data, I want to put all that in Vault so that if I change it, it gets automatically updated locally when they log in. So it's a way of keeping everything in a central location, but automatically providing updates to people when they log into Vault. So these are all things that we could do. One that we've added now, looking forward to the new set, is this idea of multiple folder delete, which seems like a simple idea. It just didn't exist in Vault. We didn't have a way to easily go in and do that. So I want to work through a few of these. I'm going to log into Vault. It's actually a Vault that Pete has set up. So let me go grab that. This is one, this is left over from yesterday. This is one that Pete has set up, and I'm going to go log into it here. So I'm logging in just using my Autodesk ID. And if you look at this server name, I thought this was kind of cool. It looks a little unusual, and it's because we're using the Vault Gateway. This is not one of our utilities. This is part of Vault. It's something with 2023 where I'm actually logging in effectively to a web address that's taking me to a Vault that Pete has set up locally on a server. So I'll go ahead and log into this and then work through some of our utilities and some of the different pieces that are here. First thing it's going to do is check to make sure that I've got all of my local folders that are up to date and all my different pieces are where they need to be. Once we have that, I'm going to come in and start using the idea of some of these templates and some of these utilities that I was just talking about that we typically use. So I'll let this finish loading. There we go, perfect. So if we take a look, this is a common way of a company that I have here that, you know, the fictional company Pete and I are working at. Each of these assemblies, this is what we do every single time. We're setting up a new project, and within that project, we're going to have a set of folders. And these folders look like this. And then, for instance, with CAD, it's going to have a 100 series, a 200 series, etc. And this is just something we're repeating over and over. You know, as we go through, it's just a common theme that we have. So that means when I want to create a new one, if I want to create a new set of folders for a new project, I have to create all of these different folders with all of their different information here, and it does not sound like fun. Fortunately for me, I have my IMAGINiT Utilities, and I'm going to say create folder from a template. So when I go through here to create this folder from a template, I can select the information, and I can say, you know, here's my new one. So we've got a, we'll do double loader. And this is my new project that I'm creating. Pete has already gone through, and we'll show this in a bit, but he's gone through and done some of the background settings so that all I have to do is say, okay, and it's going to, based off of this project that I've selected, it's going to create every single folder, all the permissions for the folders, all of the settings for the folder. That entire structure is now built over here for me. So I can go take a look at the double loader. There it is. There's all the folders, all of the information, all of the pieces that I have in there as part of that. So this, you know, this is one of the standard tools that we have, and this to me is one of the big reasons why we use something like this. It's such a powerful tool set. Now, it's possible as I'm going through that, you know, I use this as my template, and I realize I don't need the 300 series for this project or the 6 or the 7. So I'm going to select those. Just like I normally would, selecting folders within Vault. And notice delete is grayed out for me. Standard Vault functionality means I can't delete out multiple folders. However, with my IMAGINiT Utilities, I do have delete folders, and it will allow me to delete multiple folders. So again, this isn't, we're not recreating what Vault does or how it works or, you know, the concepts behind it. What we're doing is taking things that you would work on a day-to-day basis, and we're simplifying it a little bit, right? We're going through and saying, yep, this is how that's going to work. Now, of course, it comes back. Somebody says, Caleb, what were you doing? You definitely should not have you deleted some folders. We need all those folders. Well, I can, and I mentioned this a moment ago, I created a folder from a template. I can update a folder from a template. So I'm going to update that CAD, excuse me, go up one level. My double loader here, I'm going to update this. I'm going to update that using my engineering project template. It's going to go through, see what folders are different, right? Oh, I got to tell it which one I'm going to. It's going to say which folder is different, and now it's going to add those right back in. So that those ones I just deleted out, it said based off the template, those should be there, and it's able to add them back in. So again, these are all, you know, we've got the new multiple delete. It's a great little tool that we've added to it. The others are just standard tools that we have where we can delete multiple, we can add multiple folders off of a single concept. You know, here's a template that we're going to have, and then we can update that so that it all matches off of the same idea. So if you're not using these in utilities now, it's Now, it's really effective to take a look at that and see some of those pieces that are part of that. All right, and jump back. So that was the idea of folders and libraries, and there are other ones in there. I mentioned the standards folder, local copy cleanup, being able to edit your working folder to clean out your working folder, so we can have some things there. But I want to take a look at moving on to extracting and providing information. So this is another thing that can be done other ways, but is really useful. There is a link generator, so I could get a URL for it would be for the thin client for a specific item or a file, so I could easily send someone a link that they could open up in the thin client. I'll point out the visual lifecycle tab that's in here, which allows us to see where in the lifecycle something is and if it can move to another part of the lifecycle. The one I want to point out here is the bill of materials. We can, where I could pull a bill of materials right out of Vault. I can go to a particular assembly and say, let's extract the bill of materials, and it can give that to me. There's also a lifecycle change notifier. So if I go from, let's say, work in progress to released, I can set who gets emailed about that. With this one, we were kind of looking at, what's new as part of this, and a lot of it is kind of on the back end. So we're holding, Pete will go through some of these on the admin side in just a minute. I'll just real quick show just a few of these off here in my Vault. So if I take a look, for example, at this 800 series drawing that I have right here, it's currently in work in progress. And here's that visual life cycle. This is part of our utilities. Doesn't change how life cycles work, but it does give me some quick feedback as to where I could go from work in progress. So from work in progress, I could go to review or released. I can't move to quick change or obsolete from here, which makes sense, right? Those doesn't really make sense that we would move through those. We've got a specific path we're going to follow for that. So that's one of the indicators that we've built in here, feeds that information back. What I am going to do is take this subassembly that I have right here. And again, I do almost all this off the right click. By the way, there is a lot of this off of our tools that are up here. These are usually admin. Everything that I'm doing is really off this right click. But I'm going to come in and I'm just going to extract the bill of material from it. I'm going to say, hey, go get that bill of material. So it looks at the bill of material that's in Vault, the columns that I'm using, the information that it's pulling, all of that has been set up as a template already. So I don't have to think it through very much or take a look at it, but it's going to take a look at that Rev B. It's going to pull out a bill of material for me, and then I can export that if I want to out as an Excel file. So I can do the same thing through Inventor, but I wouldn't have necessarily file revisions or any of the specific Vault, the Vault specific information, right? File revisions, like lifecycle state, all of that sort of thing. So I can capture that within Vault, and then I can export that out. So that's a couple of ways that our utilities extend the use of your data with those. And again, we'll see some other things that are added to this, but it's more on the admin side that Pete can turn on and turn off and adjust from his end. The other side of this is this idea of creating these consumables. And this could be creating PDF files, creating DWG files, creating DXF files, and including a sheet. We can actually go through and create a sheet metal flat pattern and do DXF with that, or we can create a step. And this can be set up so that what it does is it sends a job to the job processor, and that job is going to go through and generate this file. So Vault, I'll always say, when it comes to this, I'll always say we did it first, right? So we were creating PDFs in Vault before Autodesk actually added that feature, which, Pete, what was that, 2020, 2021, something like that. And so if you were creating PDFs using the Vault tools, I will say we have some, I like how ours are set up in terms of how we can name them, which will be important here in a minute, because some of the naming conventions can be a little difficult within the standard Vault tools, and with our utilities, we make that a little easier. But creating the PDFs, but also then creating those DWGs, taking an inventor, could be an inventor IDW, and I want to create just an AutoCAD DWG upon release, and then creating step files, right? We can create step files on demand or on lifecycle transition. So maybe once we're done with a project, one of the last things we have to do is create a step file so we could send it out so someone could take it externally to use it in a CNC. So all of these consumables, these are all part of that. So these, we've seen one new one. All of those or others are standard here. So here's a lot of the different types of things that are in here that control so much of this. I mentioned the idea of the folder that we had in there. I mentioned the idea there's more things we can view, and in terms of not just the lifecycle states, but there's other things we can view as a tab in Vault. I mentioned file naming options. I mentioned that you can get an email when something comes out. All of these types of things have been updated, so it's all within the Vault client utilities, but it's more on the admin side of the Vault client utilities. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pass this over to Pete and have him talk through a few of these different things, show some of these different areas. So Pete, I'm passing it over to you. You can start sharing anytime.
All right, thanks, Caleb. So like Caleb said, I'm going to just run through a little bit of the admin side, and I'm primarily going to focus on what's new on the admin side, but I might touch on a few features that have even been there for a while, but maybe people aren't utilizing them or know that they're there. But to do any of the administrative setup of our client utilities, you do definitely have to have the administrative role on your user account. Everybody does see the admin side, but if you go into any of these features and it tells you you don't have permissions, it's because you're not an administrator. If you have the admin access, we'll start here under Options Admin. And one of the things that we've added this year is the job output file names. Now, these are for our jobs. These do not impact the Vault jobs. So if you're using Vault to generate PDFs, because we all know that Vault does PDFs as well. You can see the little button up there. These won't impact that. In that case, if you guys are familiar with that, you have to go into some config files and write what we call a regular expression. So what we wanted to do was make this very simple and easy for our customers to be able to go in there and manipulate what is the format of the output file going to look like. And this is right now set up as default, right? So if you're generating PDFs using our utilities, it's just going to be the original file name .pdf, step, DXF, and DWGs. But if you want to change how that PDF is going to look, it's as simple as just coming in here and you can choose any Vault property. So for example, if I want to put the revision itself into the file name, I can go ahead and put an underscore in or a dash, however you want it to see, and add that revision now into the output file name. And this will take an effect whether you're putting the files back into Vault or you might be publishing them externally, right, outside of Vault, because if you know, our PDF tool actually can do both. But this is where we can adjust that. Now, we put a little note in here that this change may take several minutes to take effect. So if I hit OK and I go to test it right away, hey, what happened to my revision? We're rereading that config file. I think it's about every 10 or 15 minutes. But if you want to speed the process up, just stop and restart your job processor, and it'll read that file then when the job processor restarts. But this was something that we found a lot of our customers were asking for, is adjusting the output names. Another option or another change that we made in this admin section is on the email settings. As you know, some of our utilities use email services, lifecycle notification being one of them. And in the past, you had to go in there, just like you see here, provide some SMTP address information. And in my case, I'm using my 365 account, and I can do all that. But we find some customers don't have that, or they don't have a license that they want to use, or it's not easy for them to set up. Well, we simply have added a little checkbox here to use the IMAGINiT mail services, okay? So you don't need to fill any of this out. You can just simply check that box. And what happens is these utilities communicate back to us, and we will send those emails out utilizing our SMTP relay for you. This has also been added in now to the server utilities. So if you're using our server utilities for backups, you want those notifications. The job manager, that's another one that sends out emails. So wherever we're sending emails using any of our utilities, you'll have the option now to just use the IMAGINiT mail services. And that's a big thing for me, because a lot of times when I get to a customer and I'm implementing these things, we don't have this information, or we don't have a license to use to do that.
Yeah, Pete, I was going to say that's probably one of my favorite ones out of this for the
Yeah,
exact reason you described. I'm sitting there talking to the engineering team and saying, so what's your mail server name and what port number? And,
yeah.
it's suddenly it's just a wild goose chase to uncover that information. So it's great that we can simply use IMAGINiT mail services to do that.
Long gone are the days of open relays. It was really easy back when you just had port 25. Um, so a couple other things. I think I wasn't really going to go into this, but one of the questions I saw in coming in was talking about clone structure and stuff. And I don't know if you're referring to what Vault is going to do now. Autodesk has started to bring in, I don't know if they're looking at our utilities or not, but they're starting to bring in some of these things like cloning folder structures and things like that, right? And we've been doing this for a little bit. I think, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now where we've had this folder templating. So we've learned a lot from it, and we have a lot of options in here that I think you can utilize that may not be in the clone folder structure that's there. But again, both of them should do pretty much the same thing. But a couple things in ours I just wanted to point out is, like Caleb mentioned, we can copy permissions. So if your template has folder permissions, we can copy those. We can copy properties. So if you're putting folder properties on your folders, those can copy over. We can set that up to be an admin only. So maybe we only want administrators to actually be able to create new folders within Vault or new folders off of a template, as well as maybe those seed folders have links in them. We can copy those in and so forth, or we can put files into them and so forth. So there's a few things there. And if we are setting permissions, like in this case, Caleb, if you notice, Caleb created that folder template or set of folders. He's not an admin, right? But that folder structure got created and set ACL permissions on it, which he doesn't have the permission to do. So in that case, we use the job processor to do that. So we can do that as well. So there's a few things that might be different than what you see coming out of Vault itself with the folder cloning. Another area that we've improved, and this is an update to our standard folders, is that I think it was in 2022, we added a fair amount of new options, right? Whether we want to include empty folders, whether we want to do just folders, whether we want to overwrite. So if there's files that are locally been modified and we want to push down what's in Vault and override any changes that the user might have made locally. So a lot of this has been kind of added here, but back here in the dashboard, or when you opened up standard folders, you couldn't see what options you had for each one of these jobs that you're trying to sync. So we've added columns so that at a quick glance you can see, oh yeah, okay, this one is including empty folders or it's not including empty folders. The other thing we've done is by job, we're going to allow you to disable them temporarily if you want to. In the past you had to either remove the job if you didn't want it to run for a period of time. Then we came back and we added a disable button here, but that disables all of the jobs. Well, now you can still do that. We can just simply disable standard folder checking, or we can go in each one individually and disable each one individually. So as an admin, if you're in there and you're like, oh, you know what? I'm making changes to my inventor templates. I just want to turn that one off, right? You can do that. So that was a really kind of a big change here, and a good one for that, because I always had to go in there and kind of see what was going on, but now we have that visible to us. Then the next one I want to talk about, again, this isn't anything really new, but I don't know if everybody's really aware of this. As an admin, we have this utility visibility, and you can go in and you can turn off what of our utilities is visible in the interface. So as you notice, when Caleb would right click on a folder and it says, so here's where's that, the top here? Yeah, here's our folder, sorry. The create folder from template. We can simply turn that off so that that's not even visible or available, okay? But the one thing to understand about this is per user. So if I go in and I uncheck any of these boxes, I am unchecking them just for myself, not for all my users that are at my company. However, if you want to turn off, let's say, for example, you don't want them using our PDF tool to create PDFs, you could uncheck that. This saves out a config file locally on your machine. You could then use our standard folders function to send that out to all of the users, right? So the next time the users log in, basically we would update their config file and it would turn the visibility on or off of our utility. So kind of a combination of a few things. One of the things we are looking at is maybe trying to get this to work a little bit more globally, but there's some challenges there, but we're working through those. But I just want to make you guys aware of it. It is just for you. Now, what we did add in this latest version is the ability to, where is it at here? Create local folders. Wait, it's under, yeah, it's under folder. To create the export folder structure. Sorry, I was looking for create. Export folder structure, okay? So this one here, what that does is it allows you to export out at any point of your folder structure a CSV file that will show you the ACLs of those folders on down. You know, what groups have access at read, write, modify, and so forth. And I can show you an example of what that output file looks like. But again, it's just a nice way if I've got a really overcomplicated vault and a lot of folder permissions going on, I want to dump that out into an Excel spreadsheet to take a look at where I might have, you know, things that I don't necessarily want to have people have exposure to. I can do that. That's coming directly from, you know, one of our customers as a request. The other thing that we've added now is a security tab. Okay, and again, this isn't turned on by default, but as an admin, I can go in here and turn this on for myself. And some of these will only work for admins. So if a user turns on the, well, first of all, a user can turn on these visibilities, but if a user turns on the security tab, it won't work for them. And what that security tab is it adds it down here, and it shows us the permissions on this particular file of what the object permissions are, the folder, right? And the state-based permissions if we have a state applied. And this is something, again, admins are struggling with all the time. You know, we have to right-click, go in here, go to details, look at the security tab, kind of figure out, okay, well, this is coming from my state, what's coming from my object. Well, we put it in this nice little tab down below. So again, from a troubleshooting perspective, I've got users that say they can't do something or things like that. I can come in here and I can take a look at each file and so forth. Now, again, if a user was to turn on this tab, because they don't have permissions to read the ACLs, they basically just get a message here that says you don't have permissions. So again, these are really just for admins and admins only. Okay, I think that was about it, Caleb, in terms of the admins on the client side. So I will pass it back over to you.
So Pete, that kind of wrapped up the idea of the client side. We do have a few new things on the Vault server side. So one thing I want to kind of make sure we're breaking out here is the idea that the client side is a set of free utilities we provide to clients that are on subscription with us. The server side is a paid tool. You can, there's an initial cost plus subscription. This one is best for Vault Professional. It probably affects all of the things affect Vault Professional, but quite a few of these do work for Vault Basic. And one Pete mentioned was the idea of the Vault Backup tool. Yeah, we have a great graphic user interface for creating a Vault backup script, and then it will also email you. We can have email notifications if it's completed, or incompleted, or just incompleted. So we've got some options with that, and that uses our updated email server options where you can use the IMAGINiT server, mail server for that. But that tool alone is probably the biggest reason people start to look at the server utilities is I want that backup to email me. You know, that's what I'm looking for. There are quite a few others in there. The idea of subscribing to changes on folders. I can get a daily or weekly summary about files that have been edited, downloaded, updated in a particular set of folders that we have there. So that's a very, very useful one. If you're loading a lot of data and you need to update a lot of data, there's also a tool in there that will do metadata update, where I can pull an Excel spreadsheet from Vault, edit it in Excel, and then push it back. So it would be all the properties about the files, all the user-defined properties I can extract into an Excel spreadsheet, edit the Excel spreadsheet, and then push that information back into Vault. So that's we use that quite a bit when we're doing initial data loads, or if we're doing some type of prep to push things to an ERP system and we need to make sure we have data in there. That's part of that. So those tools are there. What we've kind of added to that, I mentioned the job updated email server options. There's also the job processor will check for an Autodesk login. So this is, Autodesk has changed the way Autodesk has changed the way that they're licensing things, through the years. So having an Autodesk login, we've had some jobs fail because there was a user, but there wasn't an Autodesk login license associated with the user. It's going to check for that now. So we've got that option to look for that. There is also a tool we're calling it the Audit Log Reader. You can turn on audit logs to be automatically created inside of Vault. On their own, sometimes it's kind of difficult to see what's happening. The Audit Log Reader can concatenate those and put those in a format that's a little easier to take a look at it and understand. And the last one has to do kind of with that, where we can do a mass folder or file move. So I can take all files from folder A and move them over to folder B, and we can do that. Pete, remind me, is that with the is that a separate tool, or is with the metadata update tool? I suddenly can't remember.
It's in the metadata update tool. So
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yep, it's just another option there under the jobs, like the rename is now. There's the move folder, and just as an example, like where would we ever use that or need that? I'm sure there's lots of examples, but one that I just did recently, not too long ago, as a customer had set up their Vault with their Content Center file, Content Center folder in Vault as a Vault library type of folder, right? And as we all know, that you can't move things out of there very easily. So they wanted to convert their Content Center folder into a regular Vault folder. And again, you can't move these things. So our tool will actually go in there and move things and move them very quickly. I mean, I've moved thousands of files within minutes. So very, very good. And there's other obviously use cases for it, but that's just one that I just recently did.
And that's a big one. It's interesting because it's not something you're going to use every day, but it's the best tool in the world in those moments when you absolutely need it. So that'll give you, some of these tools are enhancements, some of them are simple additions, and then really the Audit Log Reader and the mass folder file move is an addition to one we have already. But this is an ongoing thing, and Pete's mentioned it a couple times, and so have I. All of this really tends to come from one of two places. It's coming from a client specifically saying, man, I wish, or it's coming from someone like Pete, who's out there working with clients and going, I really wish. And I think that's important to understand. And part of the reason we appreciate the feedback that we're getting is this is very client focused and client driven. And that's where we're coming up with ideas for enhancements and adding and working with these different utilities within there. So guys, I said a half hour, 45 minutes. We're at 36 minutes. So I was about dead on. I did want to open it up just to see if there's any questions or that you guys had about anything in particular. Pete, I know you've been answering a few as we've been going on. We do have, there's my email address right there. If something stands out to you, please shoot me an email. I'd be more than glad to walk through any other questions you want to take offline or anything. But
well, as I just mentioned to Cal before, I forget is, there might be the question, well, how do we get these updates, right? How do we get the latest version of these utilities? So if you've already got, or if you already have our client utilities or server utilities, you can simply use the download link that you received back when you signed up to get our utilities. So it's the same link. It'll download a new zip file, and then you can just simply run that executable. You don't need to uninstall the previous version of the utilities. It'll just update. In fact, you'll get a little pop-up that says, do you want to update these utilities? If you don't have our client utilities, you can go to our IMAGINiT website, and there's a request form to request them as well as a license for them. And like Caleb mentioned, is if you're one of our customers and currently getting your Autodesk maintenance through us as a reseller, we offer these free of charge, the client utilities. And there's just a simple form, you fill it out, and it's usually within a minute or two, you get an email back with the link to download the client utilities as well as the authorization code to authorize them.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions that have been coming in. I've been talked about the clone structure. I think if that's what you were referring to, is Autodesk has introduced this clone structure of cloning the folders, and I think I kind of hit that a little bit. What might be a little bit more functionality there. Jordan had a question here about AutoCAD Electrical in creating a single PDF multi-sheeted, I'm assuming from an electrical project. That's on our list. We don't do it today, but it's definitely on our list to do. We've been doing a lot more lately. A lot of customers are implementing AutoCAD Electrical now, so we're getting to see a whole bunch of more functionality just around AutoCAD Electrical that we might build into our utilities. In fact, We'd even talked about maybe we should spin off an electrical utilities package, just for kind of working with electrical. But yeah, it's definitely on our list to look at.
Yeah, you could still create that obviously from the package itself. It's just within.
Correct. It's
Yeah,
just doing
so
it inside a Vault, like on a
inside of the Vault.
lifecycle transition.
Right.
We do not have
That, which would be killer. But yeah, it's a multi-step process within the tool itself. It's not just, hey, send this out to the server. It gathers them up. It does some things in the background. So yeah, I agree. It would be an excellent one.
Yeah. Frank had a question here on the 2023 or previous versions. So what we're showing here today, the new functionality, it will be just in 2023. Some, if we have, things that we find, that we need to fix, or there's a bug or something like that, in those cases, a lot of times we will backport that back to previous versions of our utilities, but new functionality is just going to be from this version forward. Is there a control of the selection of the step file application?
Yeah, I assume that is it step AP203 or whatever it is. I can't recall right now.
So there's an INI file that goes along with all of our outputs, whether it's a PDF, a DXF, the sheet metal, and step. We have an INI file. It's under program data. We can get you the path kind of thing, but you go in and find our utilities under the program data location. And basically, when you're in Inventor, if you do things manually in Inventor, like export stuff, you're going to see a dialog box, right, with all the different options that you can pick and choose. We've built in those options into those INI files. So pretty much anything you can do through the Inventor UI to export these types of formats, you should be able to do in the INI file. And again, any of these things you guys have questions on, you can contact us, contact our support team or desk, and they can help with some of that. One of the questions here was, does it work just with Vault Pro or Vault Basic as well? It is just Vault Pro, partially due to Basic doesn't have a Vault API that we can tie into and do any automation with.
Yep.
Okay, if publishing in the Vault, what happens to the files? If Rev A is released as a PDF and Rev A, then it goes to Rev B, would it be Rev? So if you append the revision, right, onto the name of the file, it will be a separate file, right? Every revision will show up in Vault individually. If because the file name needs to stay static in order for it to, say, stack the revisions like it does with an Inventor file. So yeah, if you do append the revision on, you will have individual PDFs show up then in Vault, just like you would have, as their individual files.
Yep.
Assuming security function is new in the 2023. Oh, the security tab. Yeah, the security tab is a new feature that we added into this utility. So yes, you would need to get up to 2023 to have that. And then is there a way to check in files and change state at the same time? No, unfortunately not. You think about it, the files have to be in Vault, right, to be able to change state, that being a Vault function. So yeah, that would be, I don't know that we have ever even talked about it or thought about doing that, but there's not a way to do that today.
Well, could we, as just thinking randomly here, Pete, so this is you and I talking for a second, everybody else can listen. Could we set up a work life cycle that the default is something other than work in progress?
Oh, absolutely. The
so
default
it wouldn't change the state necessarily, but we could say, I'm checking in a bunch of files and I want all of them to go to automatically to released, right?
Yeah.
So the starting state,
the initial check-in too, which you might still be step or something. So you got to be careful about that. But I do set up a lot of vaults like that, especially content center parts, right?
Yes.
I might put a part in as a content center file and it goes straight into release.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. There you go, guys. You get to listen to Pete and I. This is
the PDF format. Can we go to all lowercase? I don't believe so. I think it's going to match the file name. I could be wrong. I don't know that I'm pretty sure that's what it does.
I don't know
the way we can change that. So
no, it's because it's taking those properties. So whatever format those properties are in, however, whatever capitalization is or is not there, that's what it will take. But I don't know a way to force it.
And then mention that the client utilities come with Vault Pro when you buy through IMAGINiT. So if you're using us as your reseller of record, you're on subscription or maintenance with your Vault Pro licenses with IMAGINiT, you can go to our website and you can request the utilities. And they're, like I said, they're free of charge. We give those away. There's not much you get for free anymore, but that is definitely something that we try to provide a benefit to our customers with.
So the utilities themselves are absolutely free of charge. If as you take a look, there's some things you can set up, right? And there's a help file, and you can take a look at that. But if there's any level of confusion about that, it's something that we offer. Is we'd absolutely love to sit down with you, figure out how you want them set up, and then configure it for you. So just absolutely reach out to us on that.
Question about assigning categories based on folders. So that is actually a function within Vault today. You can set up your rules based on a folder name or a folder path, or contains a name of a folder path. That was something that came in, I think it was in 2021. And in my opinion, this was a big game changer for Vault. How many times do we want to, we might have AutoCAD files, and we're always putting this DWG into a folder called layout, and we want that to go to a different category than an elevation drawing, for example. So we can now categorize the files based on the folders that they go into, or the folder names. But that's nothing to do with our utilities. That's just straight up now Vault functionality.
All right, thanks so much, everyone.